All right, I'll be back.
Good morning. Happy Sunday to all. I hope folks are enjoying recovering from the holidays as we get ready to gear up going into the winter holidays. So let's enjoy and reflect on this time. Let's be thankful for our loved ones, and let's be thankful for folks who are making a big difference when it comes to the public policy side of the world and moving us closer to our goal to legalize it. We're going to talk about that and a whole bunch of other things in the rotation. So, good morning, everyone. As I said, it is a holiday season upon us. Folks are probably still recovering from eating loads of turkey. Folks are getting ready to see their families again and friends and such in a few more weeks. And I'm really excited because we are heading into the legislative session coming up in January. And there is so much that we can tackle, especially being an election year. And I'm pretty excited for some breaking news that happened just on Friday, is that Senator Carlos Guillermo Smith has filed a bill in the Florida legislature to actually legalize the right of medical patients to grow at home. And that is something worthy of applause. And there are so many other things that we're working to address this legislative session that we have brought back from other sessions. We're going to continue to fight for, such as employment protections for medical marijuana patients, of course, protecting your parental rights. And as we continue in the ongoing fight in the legal sector and judicial system around your Second Amendment rights as a medical marijuana patient. And that fight there was actually started in the state of Florida by none other than our special guest today, our former commissioner of agriculture, the chair of the Florida Democratic Party, and a NORML board member, Ms. Nikki Fried. Nikki, welcome to the show.
Good morning, everybody.
So thank you.
We've known each other for a couple of years. I remember the first time I met you was at the Governor's Club, when you were giving a speech when you were working as a lobbyist for Ignite Florida.
Yep.
And we were talking about the same thing then, because Barry Gordon had to be your one of your guest speakers that day. So it's been a while. I remember seeing you as a lowly lobbyist, and you continue to climb. And I think it's just absolutely wonderful. We supported you highly when you ran for governor, and I guess the state just wasn't ready for you yet at that point in time. Hopefully they're ready for you soon, because I'm ready for some change here in Florida. Definitely.
Yeah, understatement, Gary. And it's I obviously do a lot of podcasts, and throughout my weeks and my years and my days, let me tell you, I love coming onto this because I have no script. I just get to talk to my friends about where we are in the cannabis space and where we need to be and in the past and all that good stuff. So I love coming on and talking to you guys because there's so much good stuff to talk about, and there's so much movement in the industry. Some 10 steps back and 10 steps forward in every which direction. But it's always nice to be able to have a conversation with you all about, where we are and where we need to be going.
Well, I appreciate that. We really do enjoy having you on as a guest, and of course, celebrate with you all the great work. Folks oftentimes in this day and age of hyper-partisan politics, don't like the fact that we talk about politics, but the reality is that there are political motivations behind cannabis prohibition, and a lot of the rollbacks that we see have a lot to do with money in politics. A lot of the stumbling blocks and hazards and roadblocks towards legalization have a lot to do with money in politics. And you have been there as a statewide elected official in a trailblazing role, in a pioneering role, as the first woman to be the Florida Commissioner of Agriculture. Definitely a sector that has been dominated as a good old boy space for a very long time. And in your tenure, you did something historic. You helped to create the first regulated legal hemp product market in the state of Florida, creating tens of thousands of businesses and even more tens of thousands of jobs. And beyond that, you continue to serve on the national board of NORML, its board of directors, alongside so many other great cannabis activists across the nation, to continue to get us to this point. So partisan politics be damned. You have been really a person who has worked to make sure that this movement and access to this plant is granted for everybody. And we truly thank you for that.
Thanks for that, Chris. You know, because this is not a partisan issue, and it should never have been a partisan issue. You know, this is something that when we passed hemp in 2019, look who sponsored my bills. They were Republicans on both sides of the chambers. And we built a coalition we built a coalition of cannabis advocates, of veterans, of farmers, of those in the conservative part of our state, because this is people use for all things, whether it's the industrial side or the human and animal consumption side of things. People who are using it for cancer doesn't decide whether you're a Democrat or Republican, and if you have Down syndrome doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on, and our patients are demanding this, and our consumers are demanding good quality products. And so it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on this issue, and it's building that coalition to finally get across the finish line.
Indeed, justice should never be partisan, and tell us a little bit more about your your fight for fighting for our rights, especially around our Second Amendment rights when it comes to being medical cannabis patients. Because you initiated that lawsuit. It's tell us a little bit more. We're waiting for the Supreme Court at this point to kind of say something.
Yeah, this is something that when I first was running in 2018, for those who didn't remember my campaign of 2018, I had 3 W's: weed, water, weapons. Here in the state of Florida, all 3 of those are the culture of our state. It's the libertarian aspect of weed to the environmental aspects of what makes Florida on water, and guns in Florida is, it is here to stay. And so when I was running in 2018, and obviously coming from the cannabis space, a lot of the questions that we saw from people in the ecosystem who was complaining that Adam Putnam, my predecessor, wouldn't make a decision on the concealed weapons permitting. And so that for those who don't know, inside the Department of Agriculture oversees concealed weapons permitting program. And I'd get a lot of questions: Nikki, what about firearms and concealed weapons and guns? And I was like, as an attorney, I'm looking at the state statutes, I'm looking at the federal laws, and I said, look, the state statute is what creates the concealed weapons program. I don't see a problem with those. And so I campaigned on that. And when I first got into office, I think that famously people still are seeing the visual and the viral effects when I showed on social media both my cannabis card and my concealed weapons permitting card, and everybody lost their minds and no one knew what to do with my reaction to that. But the other thing is I had a firearm, and as a single female, in living in Florida, I wanted to make sure that I had access to purchasing more, and that I had for personal safety. And then recognizing that as a cannabis user and a medical card holder, that I couldn't purchase a new firearm. And I said, well, isn't that freaking ridiculous that I've got a constitutional right in Florida for my medical cannabis, and on the other hand, I've got my Second Amendment rights to purchase a firearm? How is that possible? And certainly as a responsible user of cannabis, how are you disarming me? And so when I first got into office, I turned to my general counsel and I said, find a way to say yes to me when I say I want to sue this federal government on this issue. And they spent the better part of 2019 trying to figure out legally how that makes sense. We had some outside counsel that kind of looked at some of the national trends and some of the other national case law that may make some sense. And so we spent 2019 and going into 2020 putting together the fact patterns of what would be eventually Fried versus Garland, where I, in my official capacity as Commissioner of Agriculture, and then creating 2 classes, and some of our activists out there were very engaged in trying to help us create those classes. One was some of our marijuana activists, some single females that own their own small businesses that wanted to be able to purchase a firearm, but because they're in the cannabis space and have their medical card and are medical users, were actually went out and filled out the form and then said yes to that infamous question. And so they were denied their firearms, and that created one class. And then some veterans who had access to firearms and military experience and trainings didn't want to lose their firearms. And so we there created the class. And unfortunately, COVID hit, and we had to prioritize getting our state through the pandemic. And so this lawsuit kind of went onto the back burner a little bit, no pun intended. And then we decided, when the pandemic started to slow down and we can start looking at other issues to start pushing again, we filed on April 20th, 2022, the lawsuit of Fried versus Garland. Making my Democrats lose their damn minds. Oh my God, here's a statewide elected Democrat suing Joe Biden, and tried to explain that that's not exactly what this was about. And we, in the first trial court, the Department of Justice had filed a motion to dismiss, accusing all of us of the worst of worst, of 1669 cases, calling us all whores and prostitutes and the worst of society, and making that comparison. And the court actually dismissed the case. We, of course, appealed it. And in that interim between the appeal and the decision from the 11th Circuit, I was out of office. Unfortunately, my successor withdrew from the case, but we still had the two plaintiff classes. And the 11th Circuit basically slaughtered the Department of Justice, and basically saying you can't just blanket taking away people's firearms. They haven't committed any crimes. These crimes are misdemeanors at best. In Florida, they're not even crimes. And so we have an 11th Circuit case that has referred it back to the lower court. And in the process, we have seen the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court pick up one of the guns and drugs cases. Not the best of the guns and drugs cases that I would have loved to have gone to the Supreme Court. But hopefully it is a nod in the right direction that we'll get a ruling on these issues.
Wow, that's quite the legal journey. And you're right. That is definitely a brave move, to stand for justice, especially with, being the only statewide elected Democrat in Florida. And you like it was said by some of the folks, is that, hey, this is the Joe Biden administration. It doesn't matter who's in charge, whether it's Joe Biden or Donald Trump. Injustice is still being brought upon cannabis users due to federal prohibition. And really, yeah, how can this idea of prohibition truly infringe upon our other civil rights when it comes to the Constitution? And so thank you for standing up for our rights. I mean, the fact is that cannabis is valuable, not just as a plant, but it's valuable to criminal elements who are attracted to money, or criminal elements who are attracted to wanting to get their hands on cannabis. And you deserve to be able to defend yourself, your family, your home, and you should not be disarmed just because you're utilizing medical cannabis to live a healthy life. No one is disarming folks who have Xanax prescriptions. No one is disarming folks who have pain pill subscriptions. So there is a lot to be said around the
or alcohol, Chris, or alcohol.
Alcohol, yeah. Good point.
Much more dangerous. If you're an alcoholic, you're not when you're filling out that form, the form doesn't say, are you an alcoholic? So it's ridiculous at this point, and why it is so important to be talking about the normalization of cannabis usage. And I was just saying earlier before we got on the show, I'm in Key West for another NORML conference, teaching CLE courses, and spent the day after the course crisscrossing Duval Street, taking our THC drinks. And my God, I had such a better experience than sitting and drinking, hard alcohol throughout the day. And here I am this morning in great spirits, no hangover. It's just going to be such a change in the culture. And so, yeah, we got to normalize this stuff, and guns is one of those things to form that coalition around.
Well, what's the possibility of getting a change done to the carry form, having a little box there saying, "Are you an alcoholic?" What would be the harm of having that one on there as well?
Yeah,
right. Right. That doesn't you agreeing that you have a problem, isn't that the first step?
It's just wild, the disparities that we see in the treatment of what people are using to be healthy or what they're choosing to be unhealthy with. And as you said, there are so many more unhealthy options out there. And you had a great day having THC drinks all day. I was doing the same thing yesterday. The THC drink was waking up this morning. I feel a lot better than the hangover I would have had dropping back a few drinks last night. And one THC drink did it for me. And Carlos, you work in the hemp sector, in the cannabis industry. What are THC drinks like with your customer base? Do you see a lot of folks there in Ybor City utilizing them?
They're super popular. They're definitely super popular. Pink is joining us right now. They're super popular right now. I mean, we're definitely selling a lot of them. But I have to say, I think this actually, and I'm drinking one right now. I'm enjoying them. But I have to say, this might actually be the downfall of the industry. And, we're talking about how great it is that, hemp is over alcohol. And at the same token, the alcohol industry's scared shitless of the hemp industry right now. And I think we should definitely segue into what's going on in the national level, because I believe it's completely the alcohol industry that's behind it.
Well, here's my confusion. The cans of drinks you have there, they're usually about 5 milligrams of THC per 12-ounce can, correct?
No.
10. 10 is five more.
10, even better. Well, and not the ones at Winn-Dixie. The ones at Winn-Dixie are only 5.
Look,
and Dollar General.
That's the problem.
And Carlos, and I had 2 Enjoys yesterday.
You had 2 Enjoys yesterday. Great.
Yes.
All right. Here's the question: did you have the mega potency THC seltzer that I happen to be enjoying right now?
Because listen, Carlos, I always admit, like people said, when was my first cannabis experience? I grew up in Miami, so we'll leave it there. So the 60 is perfect.
No, that's the thing. It's like they're not selling 50 milligrams in Total Wine. They're not selling 50 milligrams in ABC liquor, right? I'm selling 50 milligrams. They're scared for people like Chillum or companies like Chillum to come in and take their market share. And
so what? I'm sorry. Go ahead. So what?
You said go ahead, and then you started talking.
Yes, I know.
Enjoy. That's it.
So
you're talking too slow.
I'm so sorry. Here's the thing: is I think these drinks are actually going to fucking end the hemp industry nationwide. There's a big possibility that alcohol is afraid that places like Chillum. I mean, look at where Chillum's at. Chillum is in the middle of Ybor City. I'm literally surrounded by bars. I'm sandwiched in between a place called Poppy's, Coyote Ugly, and Bad Monkey. All of these places are either popular bars or dive bars. And we're a little oasis in the middle of this land of alcoholism.
Well, what if we make it so that those cans of soda or seltzer can't have any more than 0.4 milligrams per container? Would that make things better for you?
For me?
Because I heard there's a federal movement that will make it so you can only have 0.4 milligrams per container.
Yeah, that doesn't, and we know that doesn't work. And I say the same thing, Carlos. I mean, as we were walking through last night and very much enjoying the Enjoy drinks, and I'm sitting and watching all these bars on Duval, and I'm saying, what is going to happen to these bars when people are starting to utilize these beverages? And look, I think, look at the same conversations that I had with Kim over the years and other of our MSOs, saying, go do that. No one's preventing you from moving into those industries. And I think, and we've seen, True Leaf and Cure Leaf and some of the other big MSOs going into these beverages. And so I think that we continue to push our foot on the pedal on this and tell the alcohol industry, wake up and be part of us. there's enough out here that people can be participants in. But I was even, as you all know, my sister's in the industry too. She works for Jungle Boys, and she was in Total Wines the other day, and the people at Total Wines tell her that the THC drinks are the number one sellers now. So like, but you have to be responsive to the consumers. The consumers want no hangover the next day. They want to be able to feel good throughout the course of the night. I saw plenty of older people that are older than us who forgot how much alcohol hurts, and watching them walk through Duval Street hurting at 60 years old because they had too many hard alcohol drinks.
Here's the problem when you compete with somebody like Kim Rivers. We'll call her out by name.
Oh man.
Here's the problem when you compete with somebody with they are going to throw money at the legislator to get their competition out, right? And Nikki, I personally, like, I have talked to you before. You know, I've sent out press releases on behalf of this situation, but Big Cannabis has for the past 3 years been trying to pass bills in the Florida legislature to get companies like Chillum out of the industry. They want to be the only ones selling cannabinoids. And yes, okay, they realize that they can sell seltzers to Total Wine, but now they're working on being the only people that can sell seltzers to Total Wine. And that scares the shit out of me. Like the industry that you put down was amazing. It is the sheer joy of what capitalism should be. Mom and pop industry rising out of the ashes. You had no money, you had no funding to put an industry together, and you did it, right? And then little people like me were able to open up stores and actually make a living for, I mean, how long has it been now? For like the past 8 years. And now these big corporations are able to come in and sell us out.
And I agree. Like, that's been the problem, you know, that Kim and everybody got too big and have come in, and you're absolutely right. And I think that what we have created here in Florida is an industry where people, we almost almost like the banks, too big to fail, that the industry has gotten so big. And there's so many, kind of like the craft beer industry, you know, the big guys, the Budweiser, all those people for so many years were keeping the craft beer industry out of there. But there was just so many, especially in Ybor, you know, the craft industry just was exploding. And you saw so many consumers wanting the varieties. And even like Kim, like the drinks aren't there yet on taste and the quality of the products. And so you're also going to be able to have the mom and pops, which we'll continue to encourage, where people are going to want to still go to that craft part of our industry, get better quality, better taste, more accessibility. But it's going to take the hemp industry to continue to be organized and saying, we're not going to be shut out by the big guys again. There's too much of us. There's too many of us.
And well, you know, you said it in your answer right there. It'll take the hemp industry to continue to do this. Right now, I think I see it as the hemp industry has to continue. Period. Because right now, as you said, 781 provision 781 in the new budget act says that they want to basically change the hemp industry to essentially destroy it. And you're actually coming out and fighting against this. And I think that's one of the main things we should be talking about this, because it concerns so many people, so many businesses, and so many employees, and so many consumers. How could they possibly want this? How did it even happen?
You know, I think that part of what happened, because I was watching it unfold as we all were. I think that one, and I've said this very loudly, government sucks. Government sucks. Like, the people in Washington, D.C. are so out of touch with the everyday people of this nation. And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. Like, there's just a lack of understanding of the consumer, of people, of constituents. And so this happened overnight, where, to your all's point, alcohol, we're up, look who we're up against. We're up against alcohol. We're up against big pharma. We're up against the MSOs. Like, our industry is taking on some of the largest players in government. And so they got to, you know, to put this in. No one understood the industry enough to really, besides, you know, what's his name from Kentucky, you know, and no one understood it enough.
Mitch.
And so this happened. Mitch. No, not Mitch. The other U.S.
Rand.
Mitch screwed us. Yeah, Rand. You know, Mitch screwed us. at the end of the day.
Unusual couple there, those two.
They screwed us at the end of the day. And so this is my advice. So it is for everybody who's listening to this, for anybody in the activist space, anybody who's not even in the activist space, if you're in the consumer space, is to go on, first of all, call your House members, call your senators. If you're listening outside of the state of Florida, you're not going to get anywhere with Ashley Moody or Rick Scott. Call your U.S. senators in other parts of the country. Call your members of Congress throughout Florida, throughout the nation, and go onto social media and tell your stories. I have had over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, so many of our small businesses here in Florida reaching out to me and says, I put my life savings into this. I put everything I have into buying, a 1 acre, land of land, or I put it all into my small business. And now I'm screwed. So go onto social media, tell your stories, tell how you've been, if you're a consumer, how this, how you've chosen a better quality way of life, you're getting off of pharmaceuticals, that you have chosen, this as a sleep aid as opposed to Ambien or any of the other crazy over the counter shit. So we got to do what we do in the activist space. Tell the stories, go out there, call your legislators. But this is the time when you've got to make sure that people are hearing from us. The industry is large. Industry is very large. Let's go use it.
I have a question too.
Go for it.
Really quick. So I hear all of us, we all agree that the top dogs, the people with the money can just come in and get it from us, from the muscle, because they have the bigger or louder voice of reason, because money talk, bullshit walk, right? How can we get one of these big top dogs to just go ahead and say what we feel and how they feel, versus us always talking about, yeah, such and such will speak on it or have spoke on it to this little crowd? Like, when can we get them to speak on it at a bigger crowd, to the people that it matters, not us always having to do the legwork? And then when we do the legwork we need to be, then you got these other politics that come in and just swipe everything away, like Columbus did when he found America. It's just things like that I can't get past, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're right. That the activist community is tired in some respects. Everybody's been fighting on this issue for decades and decades, and we finally felt like we were getting there. Like, the ball was moving in the right direction. Like, we were finally getting to that. This was actually getting normalized, that, President Biden first started off talking about descheduling or rescheduling. And then, Trump and Kamala Harris endorsed Amendment 3. Like, we finally felt like we were getting there. And then this shit happens.
Right.
And I think that it's going to take, I don't want to go back to like 2018 with me getting elected in 2018, of having a statewide elected or big named politicians like Rand Paul, but others that are coming out and having the soapbox on this issue. And for us to get in their ears and find passion in it. It's not just,
Right.
Regulatory oversight. It's passion for the industry and the understanding of all the business side of this and the consumer side. Is where is our next round of advocates in the elected official space, is I think where we need to make sure that we're going to.
Yeah, I want to just chime in and kind of segue into where we're at, right? Nikki, you touched on a great point here in Florida, in the sense that at the federal level, if we want to see action in Congress, Rick Scott and Ashley Moody are not going to be those champions of reform that anybody can expect. Every time you click on a normal action alert and you send an email to Rick Scott or Ashley Moody, oftentimes if you get a response, it will be, hey, I really don't care about the issue, to paraphrase most of the words that you're going to get in the email response. That this isn't important to me, or this is, usually there's some reefer madness propaganda line thrown in there too. So elections, right? 2026 is going to matter. Moving forward and electing a new governor in the state of Florida, who's going to make this a priority, who's going to veto the bad legislation that's coming out of the Florida legislature. You talked about earlier how the legislature can regulate, and they can also choose what they do when it came to the craft alcohol industry. I recall when I was interning in the legislature, working in the legislature, there were just this big push to allow craft beer places to sell these huge growlers, and they've upped the amount of craft beer you can buy at home. So we've seen the legislature make it a priority to improve the craft alcohol industry, and yet the motivations behind destroying a craft cannabis industry have really just irked me to no end, because they can do things like improve the outcomes for medical marijuana patients. They could have passed 5 years ago employment protections, so people aren't losing their jobs or risking their professional licenses for utilizing something that's legal and that they need to deal with chronic debilitating pain and other conditions. And they could do things like making sure that when you go to a divorce hearing, that your status as a medical marijuana patient isn't used against you to lose your kids. Or the fact that you can get kicked off an organ transplant list because you have a medical marijuana card. You know, we started off the show talking about Second Amendment rights, but there are so many other rights that are infringed upon because of prohibition. And now that we've legalized it, and yet so many of the elected politicians in office just don't get it, or they don't care. And it's really sad. So that means that we, the people, have to do something about it at the ballot box. Surprisingly enough, you wear two hats, not just being a reformer, but you are actually leading the charge to change the people who are in the Florida legislature, who are in these top offices right now. So maybe you could share with us a little bit about the special elections going on in Florida, and then also what can we expect this legislative session, and then to tie that up on the third tier of this, to wrap it all up, is what do we do at the ballot box in 2026?
And add into that, how to not feel despair when you are in the super minority.
All right, so let me level settle, and I'll end with the Gary comments. We've got, look, I mean, kind of just to level set, where we are in the state of Florida as the last statewide elected Democrat. And my goal now as party chair is to make sure that I'm not the last statewide elected Democrat. But we got work to do. We have seen over the course of the last 10 to 20 years, Florida Democrats struggling to cross the finish line on our statewide electeds, getting ourselves into a better position into the legislature. But the people, the values that are here in the state of Florida, and those that align with the Democrats are actually pretty equal. I mean, let's go back to even 2018. 2018, the people of our state passed restoration of civil rights by overwhelming majority. 2016, we passed medical cannabis. In 2020, we passed $15 minimum wage. We've passed class size. We have over 50% of Floridians agree with us on full legalization, on access to reproductive health care. The values in Florida of the people and the party people are aligned. The problem is when you start doing the partisan labeling, people don't like the Democratic brand. And so a lot of what my job is to get the brand back into alignment with the people, and talking about things that matter, which is the kitchen table conversations. It's the unaffordability of our state. But it's going to take time, because the money, the financial resources that typically gets thrown into our state isn't there, hasn't been there for at least one cycle. We had some resources in 2022, but we got slaughtered. And I say it very candidly, the person who was sitting at the governor, top of the ticket, didn't motivate people in the Democratic Party to come out and vote. And so we had 52% turnout in 2022, lost a lot of down ballot races, lost congressional seats, House seats, Senate seats, school board races, everything in between. And so when I came into 23, I knew that we had to build a party that was reflective of our values, that was a change of branding. If anybody sees any of the branding from the FDP, it is red, white, and blue, taking back the colors, taking back the words freedom and liberty and justice. It doesn't just belong to the Republican Party. And
I like the Florida Panther rebrand, because
yes.
the jackass is outdated. We needed something really Florida based.
That's well, the other thing is, and I tell people, like, do you know where we got the jackass donkey to begin with? Is from Andrew Jackson. When his first presidential run, he was called a jackass during his campaign, and so it just stuck, and I refuse to be considered a jackass anymore. So we've changed the branding, we've changed the website, we've changed it all to at least make it look like this is a different version of this party, and because it is. And so what we have been doing is we launched this year what we're calling the Pendulum Project, year-round statewide organizing, because there's no other way around this. It's not putting things on TV. It is not going to be that flashy, candidate who's running, whether it's Andrew Gillum or myself in 2018. It's about doing the actual work. It's being on the ground. It's the grassroots. So we have been knocking on doors this year alone. We have hit, I think we've done 2.5 million doors, made just last night into the city of Miami elections, 25,000 phone calls on one shift, another 15,000 into another shift. We're doing the work, and which is where we need volunteers to be doing the work to build this army across the state. We have some really important elections on Tuesday. One is where Gary is, which is SD 11, which is one of the Senate seats that's on. So if you happen to be in the Hernando, Sumter, Pasco areas, you've got an election. You also have an election in a House District 90, which is in Palm Beach County, on Tuesday. That was a special election. We had unfortunately lost one of our House members earlier part of this year. And so a special election, Rob Long is our candidate there. Then you have a special election, a runoff, in Orange County. It's two Democrats. So it's two Democrats fighting each other, and I win no matter what. So we're not putting a lot of energy there. And then we've got runoffs in the city of Miami. Be the first time, Eileen Higgins. So if anybody's listening from the city of Miami, you got until Tuesday at 7 p.m. to go out and to run and to vote for Eileen Higgins. Be the first time Democrats will have won in 28 years in a city that Kamala Harris won. So it is still a blue city, but they are sending all of their reinforcements. Trump's endorsed the Republican, and you got all of our members of the cabinet have come down to campaign. And then you got Miami Beach runoff elections too. So if you live in Miami Beach, SD11 area, or in 90 in Palm Beach County, you got elections on Tuesday. We are hoping and cautiously optimistic for a good Florida Democrat evening. And then overall for 26, this is a time, if you are frustrated, run for office. This is a time where we need people. If you've been frustrated, I don't care if you are, stay-at-home mom, or you are, CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. This is a time where we need real people running for office, from school board to city and to soil and water districts to U.S. Congress. We've got all cabinet races up in 26. We've got U.S. Senate. Ashley Moody is on the ballot. We've got a primary going on there. So folks, so be paying attention that we have an opportunity to. Ashley's never run for the seat, so it's an opportunity. But also we've got a 1 million plus deficit on voter registration. But we've got 3.5 million independents in our state and NPAs, no party affiliates. And so if we are able to have conversations across the board and have a party agenda, which is an affordability of our state and really libertarianism, we have an opportunity to build a coalition of Democrats, of independents, of Republicans who are frustrated with this MAGA takeover of their party, to come together and build a coalition that can we win in 26. Now, it's not going to happen on TV. It is not going to happen a week before. It is going to happen by every day showing up, knocking on those doors, getting into our communities, listening to them, and making sure that our agenda is the people's agenda and that we've got solutions to those problems. Run for office, guys. We need candidates in a lot of our House and Senate seats and our city and county seats. Like, look in your areas, look on our website, run for something. We got a great program in place, but we can't do this without y'all.
Well, shit, if it comes to the point where Total Wine is the only place that's able to sell hemp, I might need a job. So
run for something, Carlos. Come on. That's right.
From what I can see,
I thank you for all your efforts, Nikki, because honestly, you were talking about how the Democratic brand and how and all the efforts you're doing to push that up is absolutely amazing. Definitely love the Florida Panther idea. But as an activist, somebody that, like, I feel like I've had, like, kind of like I play inside baseball, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not part of the political system, but like I've got my ear to it. You know, I'm up in Tallahassee, I'm talking to people and shit. So I'm not exactly like a civilian in this point in time. But I have to say that playing that inside baseball, everything that I've been trying to push, I've noticed that it's always a Republican in my way. I've noticed that, and you know, I might get some shit for saying this. We get shit for this show being political all the time, and we're pushing some Democratic agenda. But I think at this point, the only way for marijuana to become legalized in this state and to be done properly, not just corporate cannabis being at the helm, is for Democrats to be in office. And I don't see any other way.
Well, Gary, just for a moment, Carlos has an interesting journey, because when I first met Carlos, he was not the where he is now. Carlos was a registered, non-party affiliated voter. And then, I was running for office in 2018. I was like, bro, I want you to vote for me in the primary. I'm running to be your state house rep. He was like, all right. And then, he heard the Bernie campaign in 2016. And you heard that if you have a pro small business, a pro working class agenda, a pro cannabis agenda, these are winning ideas, regardless of what political affiliation you have. And the problem is that there were not enough Republicans running in primaries in Florida that have that agenda. And as Nikki said, the Democratic brand needed a rebrand as well, because those are the policies that people need to be running on if they want to actually get elected, because those are the people who make up the vast majority of our state. Yes, as Pink pointed out, money plays such a disproportionate role in politics, but it's one person, one vote. And if you're the type of candidate that has a pro small business, pro working families agenda, if you're someone who is pro cannabis, if you're anti-prohibition, if you want to help people live pain-free, healthy lives, free of oppression, and are pro justice, that's a winning formula of any platform and for any candidate, regardless of what side of the aisle they're on. And there's not enough people running with those ideas and values in mind, because again, it goes back to money in politics. So Nikki, where are we with 2026? Like you said it, there's a voter deficit in the state. We've had a lot of voter suppression. We've had changes at the voter rolls. We've had all these different things that, because there's this imaginary epidemic of voter fraud, but yet every time I look on the news headlines, the voter fraud tends to be from people who were rigging votes from MAGA candidates. So just here in the state, what do we, you said it, there's a lot of non-party affiliates. So what do we do to change elections? Because one of the things that I've always had an issue with as a Democratic voter is that so often our primaries, we could have 3 or 4 great candidates in a primary, but it's a winner take all. So the person who wins just needs one more vote than everyone else, not a majority. So a majority of voters are not electing people in our primaries. And I've seen other states take up ranked choice voting as an option. I just wanted to see, like, what do we do when only 10% of a district actually is electing the candidate that's probably going to be in that seat for 8 years? Like that's not a representative democracy. So what are your thoughts as party chair on increasing the power of our votes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a significant problem. And I talk about this all the time, that our state is so gerrymandered at this point that you are sitting in R plus 20 plus and D plus 20, and so to Chris's point is that when you are sitting in those situations and you've got such gerrymandered districts, that the primary is the end all be all. And so you might have 3 or 4 people in a primary, especially if there's an open seat, and somebody takes, an extra percentage point and they get through the primary, and there potentially is no general election because it's in some respects pointless on the other side to have fielded a candidate there, or even if there was a candidate, it makes it very difficult to even think that anybody besides that block of whether it's Democrats, Republicans, have a say. And the other thing that I get very frustrated with is that, and I've tried to lead by example here, is that after a primary, everybody goes home. And if you don't have a general election, then your candidate is not even going out there and talking to your voters. And then you don't see them for another 2 years. And then you get this continued apathy from the electorate. They said, where have you been for 2 years? I didn't even vote for you in the primary. I didn't see you in the general, and then you haven't been here for 2 years. And I think that is something that we need the people to be consistently, which is why we're doing year-round organizing, to kind of get past those. But I need obviously the electeds and the candidates to buy into that, and to be able to have those conversations earlier with our nonpartisan groups. And I have brought up, and and I certainly would love to continue these conversations of opening up our primary and getting the feedback from people. Obviously that I am not pushing it right now. There's been some internal strife. It's going to take some time for people to get comfortable with the conversation, because the state is where it is right now, that it is going to be important for us to be building a coalition that is not just the strong Democratic base, but if we truly believe that people share our values in our state, that we're building a coalition that isn't just the base, the base of the party, that we have to be able to expand more people to get us out of the super minority, to make sure that by the time, because my headspace looks at not, which is where Democrats historically, not just in Florida, but across the country, go from cycle to cycle. That does not work. You got to build power. You got to build. And so I'm looking at things from not just a 26 perspective, but how do we get to a place, time we get to actual redistricting, not the bullshit that they're doing right now, but to 2032, when Florida is going to be picking up 4 more congressional seats and 4 more electoral votes. I've been having the conversation with my counterparts across the entire country that 40% of the American population has moved to the South. And so by the time we get to that next redistricting, if we haven't invested in the South, by the time we get there, we are so fucked as an institution, as a country and democracy, because Democrats are not going to be able to compete for the White House. They're not going to be able to compete for the majority in Congress unless we've invested in the South. And so that's kind of where my headspace is building power and building the base in Florida, leading by example of how to build a coalition in the South. My party chairs of the South, we talk, when I say daily, I mean daily. Trying to really encourage the democratic ecosystem and apparatuses to start looking at how to successfully invest in the South. And it can't be when we've got a rising star candidate. It has to be building that infrastructure. It's taking messaging from the South, messaging from the Northeast, and messaging from the out West does not translate here in the South. The South can translate other places. So that's kind of some of the things that I am doing, and trying to make sure that we are supporting candidates that has that shared value, Chris, that is talking about small businesses, which is what fuels our economy here in the state of Florida, that is talking about working families, that is talking about, and again, and I use the word libertarian because that's what cannabis is. Get out of my way, regulate it so it's safe for consumers and not in the hands of our children, and get the fuck out of my way. If I want to have a 60 milligram THC drink walking them through Duval, leave me alone. It's better than my bourbon, like. But that's
the
how,
Hard Rock Casino Hotel in Tampa, Florida.
you know, guys, I kind of want to switch gears here for a second. It's not all that bad. I think we've been really hammering Nikki with like what's been pissing us off lately, and asking her to be like, hey, make me feel better. I think we want to it would be a good idea, first off, to present some good things happening, right? Our friend of the show, Carlos Smith, recently put forward a bill to legalize home grow. I want to talk to you about that. I think, and just to before you get in there, if we actually pass that bill, I see a clear path to legalization in the state. I think the biggest opposition to Amendment 3 was that it had no home grow.
Yeah.
So if we have a bill that has home grow, we could possibly have legal marijuana in the state. What do you think, Nikki?
I think that I have a great place outside behind my pool. That would be great for as a candidate to be growing my own weed in the backyard. I'm all down. I've been all down for it. No, I agree. I think that we're putting our own, the Republicans, for when they were trying to take down Amendment 3, that was the big issue. On one side, they were saying, oh, home, they talk out of both sides of their asses. In one hand, they're talking about how bad cannabis is, but trying to, like, in the same sense, home grow isn't in this bill. I don't know why they didn't include it there. The Republicans talking positive about home grow, and It's fucking ridiculous. But yes, I think that when you put home grow and all of us showing support for home grow in a regulatory framework and make the Republicans, say no. Wait a second. You said you wanted it. Well, here's the bill. Go forth and yonder, guys. But I agree, Carlos. I think that if people are starting to see that there's a path forward for home grow, I think that there's less opposition to the legalization. But we also still have a problem. We have to make sure that it is not a monopoly that is created after, and that's where we need that it is not going to be enough for us as the people to vote for whatever number it is next year to get to legalization. You have to stay engaged on the implementation. That is where money is going to be poured in from the lobby corps, from the MSOs to lock out everybody and to only make those who are holding these precious MMTC licenses to be still the only ones to participate in this marketplace. We've got to make sure that we are there on the front lines, not letting that happen.
What do you think the chances are that it passes the legislator?
I mean, Carlos is going to need help. I don't think that Carlos is going to be able to do it on his own, just like Katie Edwards wasn't able to do it on her own. She needed, for those who don't remember, back when 2015, when we passed the low THC program, it was Katie Edwards, a Democrat, whose bill it was that was first filed. And it started to come, when everybody started coming up there with our children and talking about epilepsy and why it was necessary. But Katie couldn't get it across the finish line on her own. Matt Gaetz had to come over and basically take over the bill to get it across the finish line. But a very good lesson is that happened because the activists came up to Tallahassee and were making the compelling arguments, and it was getting a life of its own, that the Republicans had no choice but to come involved and to get it across the finish line.
One thing about that particular time that I remember very carefully is that we were a large coalition of advocates from across the state, and we didn't really know what party anybody was from. It didn't matter. Everybody was up there basically trying to get things done, and nobody cared whether you're Republican or Democrat. In fact, most of us didn't even know who were the Democrats and who were the Republicans. But all of a sudden, there was a shift and a schism, and now half those advocates are trolling the other half on Facebook, and they're not talking to each other. They're not working together anymore, and oftentimes they are just not on the same page. And I have to see a way to get back, because I know, talking to Republicans in private, that a lot of them are in favor of the things we're talking about, but they have an issue with leadership telling them that's not the way the party wants to go. And
I think that, to be honest, which I am, that if home grow was to actually get across the finish line, I don't know if DeSantis would sign it. So there may we would have that situation too, that even if we did all the advocacy, which I think that there for home grow, there's a tremendous amount of advocacy. And then the coalition, to your point, Gary, is that the coalition has broken down because money is now back involved in the conversation, which is where that was not what the premise was in 2015. It was truly to help our children. And so we saw that, and we knew, we all knew at the end of the day that it was a door opening for what is now currently our medical marijuana program, and the foundation was laid. But it has to be back to the patients, the veterans, the people that would benefit from growing on their own at home are the ones who are going to have to advocate, not only in the legislature, but have to win over DeSantis or wait until 27.
There is a lot to be said about the advocacy that it takes to get things across the finish line in Tallahassee. As it's been said, you're not just fighting to organize people, and now there's money involved. There's money in the politics of all of it, but you still got to show up. And so we are partnering with our in working to rebuild this coalition with our colleagues at the Florida Cannabis Action Network. Cannabis at the Capitol is happening opening week of session, the January 14th and 15th. So if you have time, mark your calendars. If you're an activist, this is your opportunity to get off the couch and go do something. Get your couple of minutes in front of legislatures at these hearings. get this opportunity to talk to folks and catch them in the hallway or meet them in their offices, and let them know how you feel about the industry. Let them know how you feel about a patient and the experiences that you're going through. You got to engage with folks if you ever want to see any real change. And then when you leave Tallahassee, you're going to feel this desire of like, man, we got to do more. These people in these offices aren't listening to me. And that is what Nikki was saying about getting organized and choosing to run for office or working on a campaign and working to get new leadership into these offices to actually address these issues in a meaningful way. So there's a lot of opportunities up ahead. Nikki, I know you got a busy day today, and we got you for a few more minutes. So I just want to go round robin to everybody for one final question. And Nikki, before we let her go, she spent a long week this week at the NORML National Legal Conference in Key West, which has been going on for over 3 decades now. And it's an opportunity where all the different NORML lawyers from our legal committee across the country really come together and brainstorm of what's next for cannabis. They have continuing education workshops. So if you're an attorney out there and you missed it this week, there'll be more coming up next year. Great an opportunity to commiserate and get to meet with like-minded folks. And it's our National Legal Committee, which Nikki is on at NORML, that is submitting these amicus briefs and these various cases around the country that are going before these various circuit courts, state Supreme Courts, and even the United States Supreme Court. So thank you for all the great work that you continue to do there. But Gary, let's go to you, brother, for a final question to Nikki.
Well, first off, I have been haunted by my grandfather's ghost. He was born in Kiev and in a blessed memory. He keeps on telling me something about Eugene Vindman has to run for Senate. I don't know what it is about that, but I keep on hearing him say it to me every darn night. So, Colonel Vindman, if you are listening, reconsider, because we do need a good candidate for Senate. I mean, it really does come down to the quality of the candidates, as well as their visibility and people who know them. And also the fact that in the long run, they'd be willing to work on the other side as well. It must be so difficult for you within the Democratic Party not to choose
to keep my mouth shut.
Well, not to choose winners for primaries, I guess, is a good thing.
I mean,
because so many times we get bloodied by primaries, and I'm hoping that this year we'll come up actually ahead and not bruised at the end of the primaries. Although that's a long time from now.
Yeah, and that is part of my job, is obviously making sure we got good candidates that are running. I can't tip the scales on a primary, but certainly behind closed door conversations, that if making sure that everybody's above board, that we're not so much going after each other, that after our primary, which is so late in the grand scheme of things, end of August, that it is really hard to close the gap. And so certainly we also don't have candidates for all of our statewide offices. I see one of our very own Barry Gordon talking about that. But certainly it's something that we need candidates to be running for. And yeah, it is difficult for me, who I know what it's like to have run statewide now a couple of times, and making sure that we have good candidates in those positions to not tip the scales. But we need candidates. It's a combination. It's kind of like the three-legged stool. We need a strong party apparatus to be able to do the year-round organizing. We need the strong candidate that understands the role and what they need to be doing and creates fire on their own. And we need the money. So without one of the three, that the stool collapses. If without a good candidate, we don't get the money. Without a strong party to support the candidate, we don't get the money. If the money is here and spent unwisely, then we've wasted money. It needs to be all three. And so certainly we're trying to do our best to make sure we've got all three going into the 26 cycle.
And I certainly hope that Congressman Donalds does well in the private sector when he gets finished this year.
That's right.
Just saying.
Yep. Carlos, Pink, let's go back to y'all in the studio for a final question to Nikki.
I just want to be able to stand next to you, Nikki, volunteer or hold up the, your little signs with my Suncoast NORML shirt on. Seriously, I want to be there to volunteer. I'm trying to figure out what link we can grab to volunteer or put in some work. I know you're in Miami, and I'm up here, but Miami is my hometown.
Yeah.
So
So you can certainly go on to the Florida Dems, floridadems.org website, which has all of our information of how to volunteer, how to sign up, mobilize links. There's phone banking. There's, if anybody's in Miami, they're door knocking today for those 2 elections. But certainly get on the calls. And you all in Tampa have an important election too. You have a special election next March to, replace our lieutenant governor, who's now lieutenant governor. But that is Brian Nathan I'll do a shout out to him. He's a fellow union member and leader in the unions in the Tampa Bay area. So good guy, and certainly encourage people who might be in the Tampa Bay area to start volunteering for his campaign and start getting engaged there. That's in March.
Awesome.
Oh, Chris, you're on mute, Chris.
Thank you, Gary. I had a boomer moment.
I have no idea what the heck you're talking about. That is so fucking offensive.
I know it.
Oh,
So, Nikki, my final question to you is: you have spent your adult life since you were in college, striving to demand better leadership. I mean, I know you ran for student body president. In your time in college, you've had the opportunity to become our first female commissioner of agriculture in the state of Florida. You're leading the Florida Democratic Party. In all of this time that you spent striving for better leadership, how do you feel? Do you feel like it was all worth it personally? Do you feel like there's a lot to do? Do you feel like, man, I should have chosen a different career path, made a lot of money just representing really rich clients?
Chris, that is an honest conversation, and I have every single day. No, I am so proud of the work that I have done. I sit in my office, and I actually did it this week with my executive director from the party, surrounded by my diplomas from UF, my student body president plaques, the flyer in the back of my door when I was student body president, when I brought the great debate to the University of Florida campus with an DEA agent and the High Times editor, and having that when I was student body president, helped fund the first NORML chapter at UF. So my career has been fighting for better leadership. You're right. And I look around in my office and I see so many great opportunities and so many great leaders that came before me. Know that this journey is not done until we get a Democrat into the governor's office. To everybody's point, that you need good leadership that is to put aside some of the partisan politicking and fighting, and do what's right for the people. Finally get 30 years of policies from one party has made us so unaffordable. Our unions have been busted. Our education system, we're funding our teachers, 49th in the nation. Our state employees are funded 50 in the nation. We can do so much better by the people of the state. And so I will continue to wake up every day, whether it's me in leadership or pushing others. I'm not giving up until our state finally begins balanced again. And remember those days growing up in Miami where it wasn't like this. And people just could be themselves and just walk down the street and just enjoy life and not be worried about.
A dime bag. No, let me stop.
Right, when a dime bag was a dime bag. We got to get back to those times. But certainly it's there's still work to be done, and I'm not giving up quite yet on our state. I love her too much.
I know that's right, Nikki. Thank you for being for the whole time. Okay.
Oh yeah, 305 in the house.
Yeah. And let's get some change in leadership. I mean, I've had to deal with a number of interesting congressmen for this district over here. I'd like to see Chris Izahari, who's a CIA agent, former and military, to get in there. We have so many great candidates. Let's start moving them forward.
Yep, indeed.
Awesome.
And with all of that, Carlos, I think it's time for the normal news. Nikki, thanks again for. So look, at the top of the news, I think it's relevant to what we talked about in today's conversation, and it's really relevant to why everything is happening in this political push right now to recriminalize and restrict cannabis. Recent results of a clinical trial published in the American Journal of Psychiatry show that subjects voluntarily reduced their alcohol intake following the use of cannabis. Researchers affiliated with Brown University School of Public Health assessed whether cannabis use influenced subjects' desire for alcohol. Study participants had a history of alcohol and cannabis use. Subjects randomly inhaled herbal cannabis containing either 7.2% THC, 3.1% THC, or 0.3% THC, and that was actually the placebo group. Researchers then assessed how much alcohol participants consumed over the following 2 hours, and the study participants significantly reduced their alcohol intake following the inhalation of low and moderately potent cannabis, but not after consuming the placebo. Specifically, those participants consuming cannabis containing the 3.1% THC decreased their alcohol consumption by 19% relative to the placebo. Those consuming cannabis containing the 7.2% THC decreased their consumption by 27% relative to the placebo. Now, participants who participated or who consumed higher THC flower also reported less of a desire for alcohol and waited longer before consuming their first drink, as compared to those who consumed either low potency cannabis or the placebo. In all of this, I find it ironic that the group that thought they were using the legal hemp products with the 0.3% THC actually were getting the placebo. So whether they thought they were smoking hemp or they didn't get anything, it didn't see the results. But even these folks who are smoking bottom shelf and mids, in this day and age, even if you consider 7.2% mids, I mean, they saw significant reductions. And then as we see that there's higher potency THC strains out there, there's a lot to be said about the fact that smoked cannabis reduces alcohol consumption. And conversely, acute cannabis deprivation, the placebo condition, actually may lead to compensatory increases in alcohol intake. So the folks who actually didn't get any THC in them, who thought they were smoking just the hemp products and there wasn't anything in it actually, consume more alcohol to offset and achieve those feelings. So all in all, the science behind alcoholism, behind cannabis use, is definitely an area for more study, which leads me to my other news today. When we hear politicians talk about cannabis, when we hear them always say there needs to be more research. Oh, we need to do more research. And then when you do see research coming out, like you've seen recently on WebMD, there are reefer madness articles. But there are real scientific articles. There are real scientists that we've had on the show, like Dr. Barlev Schneider. There are real scientists out there and doctors doing real research across the country, like Dr. Sue Sicily, that show that cannabis is healthy, that it's something that is helping people live healthier lives. And the National Institute of Health database and the National Library of Medicine, PubMed.gov's website, includes now over 53,000 cannabis-related studies. For the 5th consecutive year, researchers worldwide have published over 4,000 scientific papers specific to cannabis, its active constituents, cannabinoids, and their effects. Despite the perception that marijuana has yet to be subject to adequate scientific scrutiny, scientists' interest in studying cannabis has increased exponentially in the past decade, as has our understanding of the plant, its active constituents, their mechanisms of action, and their effects on both users and upon society. And that's coming from our National NORML Deputy Director, Paul Armentano. He's gone on to say it is time for politicians and others to stop assessing cannabis through the lens of what we don't know and instead start engaging and developing evidence-based discussions about marijuana and marijuana reform policies that are indicative of all that we do know. And I think that the reefer madness that we continue to see push through the legislature oftentimes is not just money in politics, but it's an information gap and a participation gap by so many of us at the grassroots, so many of us who are patients, who are caregivers, who are folks working in this industry, who see the relief that the customers and clients are receiving when they utilize cannabinoids. And over all of this, there is so much research that has been done and continues to be done each and every day across this country and across the planet on how cannabis is helping. And so we got to push back on the reefer madness. We got to get active. And again, that goes back to you all taking action. So I'm asking you today, become a member of Suncoast NORML. Go to suncoastnorml.org, visit our membership section. You can sign up any major credit card. You can sign up on PayPal, and become part of this movement. Now, you might ask yourself, well, what's that going to do? Well, one, we got membership cards and membership pins for all of our folks to sign up. But two, it is something to support the efforts that we continue to do in Tallahassee. And again, we're partnering with our colleagues at the Florida Cannabis Action Network to come together for Cannabis at the Capitol January 14th and 15th. It's important that we get up there the first week of session, make our voices heard, tell these folks that we want to see employment protections passed. We want the parental rights bill passed. We want to see medical home grow passed. Some of these bills actually still need sponsorship in the House. As you heard from the chair of the Florida Democratic Party today, Nikki Fried, and a board member of NORML, that it's going to take more than just one political party to get things done. So if you're a conservative, if you're a libertarian, if you're a Republican, if you're part of the MAGA movement, and you want to see cannabis prohibition ended, if you want to see reform, you need to get active too. We need to come together and rebuild the nonpartisan coalition, the bipartisan of coalition across the political spectrum to get this over the line. It's not about red and blue. It's about that green. And all of us enjoy it. All of us enjoy that sweet green. And the truth is that it's helping people live pain-free lives. It's helping people focus. It's helping people get off pills. It's helping people with their alcoholism. It's doing so many great things. It's even helping kids who have intractable epilepsy. We've seen it with the research being done around autism and also for our loved ones who are elderly. And we're seeing how it can help treat dementia symptoms, how it can help alleviate the symptoms of Alzheimer's. There is so much great value in the cannabis plant and what it's doing for folks. And we need to elect a leadership and elected officials that are going to move forward. We got to get active and do what we can. So let's get up to Tallahassee this January. Let's advocate this legislative session. Let's continue to have a great time as an organization. We have some great member events coming up in 2026. So, of course, again, becoming a member gets you in free to all of our member events. I think it's a great time. We've been doing this for well over a decade now. And I am proud of the work that we have done. I've been proud to take every moment alongside Carlos to push the Suncoast NORML to become one of the leading chapters in the country. I'm very thankful to Gary for writing bills, for calling politicians, for advocating for us, and for doing it for free. A lot of registered lobbyists make a lot of money. Gary has been a quintessential community advocate, a grassroots advocate from the get-go, doing so much work that many lobbyists make 6- and 7-figure jobs to do. And I'm grateful for the hard work that he's done. I'm grateful for all the board members that we have at Suncoast NORML who volunteer their time, their talent, their knowledge, their skills, and abilities. Thank you to Pink, who has come on the show and the board of directors recently this year, who has been an amazing member and advocate. And thank you to all of you out there who are listening to the rotation each and every week. And we continue to push to make sure we can bring you the best guests each and every week. So hit that like and subscribe button. Share these videos and tune in each and every Sunday into the rotation. Back to you guys.
Man, Nikki Fried is just so cool. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have her on every once in a while, and her time is precious, so we have to make certain that we get in all the things that we want to talk to her about. But I did want to mention just briefly, we have to discuss the scromiting crisis in this country.
Oh, dude, don't even fucking get me started.
I mean, every time I hear about somebody talking about cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, I just want to scrum it. I swear to God.
They're trying to like rebrand it as scromiting. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck is going on? I mean, I can handle. You know what? I can't handle all the fucking yellow journalism going on. Cannabis gives you anxiety. Cannabis induces psychosis. The heart disease shit that was coming out recently. You guys remember that shit?
You know, a lot of those reefer madness studies started in the United Kingdom, and people don't understand. Again, we go back to money and politics. Some of the lead reefer madness politicians in the UK are actually married to executives at GW Pharmaceuticals who are trying to corner the cannabis market in the UK. And so it all goes back to let's create reefer madness. So the politicians produce these limited regulatory structures, much in the same way we have in Florida. So they have THC caps and they have license caps, and they create a controlled monopoly, cartel, crony capitalist structures for the legal cannabis market. And that's really the motivation behind the reefer madness studies.
That's what I was saying. I can't handle those, those fake fucking studies. Okay. At least they're trying to seem logical, right? But the scromiting thing is like a complete marketing ploy. They took a term that meant screaming while vomiting and are now applying it to fucking CHS. Now, apparently, if you have CHS, how do you even scream and vomit at the same time? Have you guys ever done that?
Carlos,
it's not easy.
I've sneezed and farted at the same time, but that's the only thing that I've been able to do like that.
Which is the reason why I usually broadcast from home now.
That's a snort. They should have went with snarting. It's like cannabis makes you start.
Yeah, good weed makes you start.
That's like the next fucking thing, dude.
One of the things that I realized is that cannabis is a regulator of the body's homeostasis. Like cannabinoids in your endocannabinoid system help regulate your immune system. They help regulate appetite. They help regulate your sleep patterns. So a lot of when your body is out of balance, cannabis helps to bring it back into balance. Anytime I've ever had one of those violent, growing up episodes with cannabis is typically because I've had a quality, full spectrum, high THC amount, usually in an RSO form. And I usually myself had made the decision before that to eat like shit. I remember the last time I threw up eating cannabis was because I tested some RSO I was giving for my dad, and I ate Taco Bell the night before, and my body rejected the Taco Bell, and the cannabis was like, bring that shit up. And so when we see all these stories of people going to the ER, it makes me think, what is your diet like? What are you eating that the cannabis that you consume told your body, no fucking way. What are you doing, dude?
Now, one more thing. About scromiting, because I have to put it out there. There's this thing called the epiglottis. It's this little tiny flap that goes in between your trachea and your esophagus so that you're not opened up both at the same time. One sends out air. The other one sends out projectile vomit. You tell me how you can scream and vomit at the same time. It's not fucking possible.
No, it's bonk science. Just the same way that they said cannabis kills brain cells. The Tulane study that did that gas mask cannabis smoke into monkeys for 5 minutes with no oxygen. And the Nixon and Reagan administrations said cannabis, look, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Cannabis fries your brain. They ran with that for decades, and it was all bad science. They suffocated those monkeys. Cannabis didn't cause the brain damage. Much in the same way, Gary, you point out, you can't scream and vomit at the same time. Carlos, what are your final thoughts on all this reefer madness, brother?
It's so fucking stupid. I mean, it's complete madness anymore. Like, science doesn't even matter. I think as a responsible nonprofit organization, I'd like to influence the group here at the Rotation. We should have a medical day. We should invite Dr. Gordon to come on. We should invite, several doctors to come on and talk about their medical opinion on cannabis making you snort.
I'm with you, man. I think it is so important to make sure you don't sneeze and shit yourself at the same time while consuming cannabis. Because that's what we say. We consume responsibly. This is what we mean. Don't consume to the point that you're snarting on yourself.
All right, that was a cool show. I think we could call that one.
Look, we're actually going to be taking a break for the holidays to spend time with family, to give you all the time to spend time with family. Again, as you consume with family over the holidays, you take that cousin walk. Make sure that you do that responsibly. We are going to be back in the new year with an exciting show. Our first show of the new year is going to be January the 11th. So mark your calendars. I'm pretty excited to have some great guests on in 2026. We're going to talk about the upcoming legislative session throughout the month of January as things develop over the spring. I'm pretty excited to see where we go with these various cannabis bills. Gary, I want to just go over to you to help us close out and talk a little bit about what you see on the horizon.
I see another major battle we have going in this next session. We have a lot of bills that are trying to get some traction. We're getting a lot of pushback from the GOP, unfortunately, but I think I see some end arounds, and I think so much what happens federally does affect us locally, and we'll see how things go from there. But in the meantime, you got to be out there, you got to be fighting, you got to be in the fight, and remember, politics got us into this mess. Unfortunately, politics is going to have to be that method that gets us out of it too. So let's keep working on it. And remember, don't bother. You can't scrum it. And I want to thank the President of the United States for finally embracing indica gummies.
You know, funny you say that. I was up here in Canada on the First Nations lands yesterday, and I saw a sleeping Donald Trump vape pen in the High Times dispensary right next to an El Chapo one, and I just thought that was hilarious. You know, and I was like, wow, yeah, maybe I don't know. I don't want to fall asleep like he's doing in those cabinet meetings, but that must be some strong stuff. Look, I do want to, before we close out the day, take a felt moment to say thank you to our friends at Battle Buds at the Bunker for 6 years of creating a space for cannabis community. Yesterday was the blowout goodbye party at the Bunker. Thank you so much to Tammy and Jennifer and all the amazing staff and folks at the Bunker and all the amazing programming that they have developed over the years to create a safe space for our veterans, for our medical patients. The last event that we had at the Bunker, at our Puff and Paint, was one of the best fundraising events the Suncoast NORML has had in a very long time. Again, thank you to Tammy and Jennifer for building that space, and thank you to everyone who's been a part of Battle Buds and the Bunker, and best wishes on all the endeavors of taking that on the road and doing what you can to spread the message of cannabis therapy for our veterans as we continue to push for our veterans to get access to this through the VA and through Congress. You can go to norml.org and click on the action alert. As we know, access for veterans was cut out of the federal funding bill, and instead they swapped in the hemp industry ban into the funding bill. So there is a lot to be said about leadership and change, and 2026 is the year that you all need to get out there, get registered to vote, and make the difference so we can finally accomplish the mission and legalize it. And we will see you again in the rotation in the new year in 2026. So much love and peace.